Hey guys, Ethan here. First video. Today I'm going to be showing you the disassembly and reassembly process of an MQ Patrol front diff. This is a C200 diff. It is a Salisbury type diff, which means the center is bolted straight into the housing. There's no separate carrier here. This is part of this. You take off the front cover, diff comes out. And at the same time, I will be filming another video where I install this four-wheel drive system's locker into the front diff. The reason I'm going to be rebuilding without a rebuild kit this front axle is because this right here is my 1985 MQ or MK Patrol. It has an SD33T, so a 3.3 litre turbo diesel that I swapped into it. Originally it was an L28. Right now it has 4.11 gears, no lockers. It's got a H260 rear and with an LSD, obviously. All the H260s had LSDs. And I am finding, since I did the swap, the 4.11 diffs are just slightly too high of a ratio for the SD. Factory, the SD33s only came with the 4.375s or the 4.675s. So 4.11s only came with P40, or I think these diffs have been swapped under it from a P40 because this was an L28. So I'm looking to get the 4.375 gears, which is what that diff in there has, 4.375. And at the same time, I'll be putting a locker in the front. Alright, so I'm a bit wet now because it's raining outside. And I'm going to get stuck into this diff teardown. I'm going to first of all put it up on jack stands. I'm going to take the wheels off and I'm going to start taking the, what are they called? Hubs, you know, not the knuckles, the hubs, the axles, all that out in preparation for taking the actual diff center out. So I'll get onto that. I'll film some of it. I won't. I don't know. I don't know how much I'll film. I'll film some of it. I've never done this before. This is pretty new for me. So yeah. Alright, if you have an MQ, you've got auto hubs, and if they have the original bolts in them, if these are the original bolts, I actually don't know, you'll need an 8mm Allen key. So as far as Allen keys go, fairly beefy. With the manual hubs, you need a socket instead. The way the manual hubs have been put onto my diff for some reason means that the washers on the nuts actually protrude out. When you're trying to put the wheel on, the wheel will actually hit the washers as it goes past. You really need to wiggle it on. It's really annoying. So I wonder if I can reuse these Allen key bolts in my manual hub. I don't know. It's actually come off really easy. Most of the time, I don't think they come off that easily. Surprised me. Oh, look at that. There's actually grease in there. Given the previous owner that I bought the Ute, the parts car, off of, it surprises me that that has any grease in it at all, or has been maintained in any way. Anyway, next thing for me to do is take off these brake calipers. Once I do that, I'll be able to obviously slide it off. I should be able to get to the nut inside where you can get to the wheel bearing nut. Alright, I know I really need a better camera position, don't worry. If I do lots of videos, I'll get a tripod or something. Anyway, got that circlip off. You can't see that, there you go, circlip off. So now I should be able to pull out some of the stuff that's in here, like this washer, these washers here. See, there's a couple washers. And after the washers, there is something. I actually don't know what that is. I'll be back. Alright, So I've actually figured out what the go is with that odd looking nut, and it's really cool. I really like this actually. So this nut, this is very similar to how the the late GQ, early GU system works with the 2 screws. I actually really like this. Obviously my brand new socket is not going to work with these, but I really like this system now that I know how it works. So basically, first of all, obviously, this, if I can get it on, screws on. Trying to do this kind of backwards is not easy. Hang on, switch hands. Alright, so this goes on like that. I'll just put in that far for testing or for demonstration purposes. So it goes in, obviously it screws in like that, right? Cool. After that, this right here is a locking ring. So it's got these 2 tabs you see on the inside, not on the outside, the lots of pins, the 2 tabs. That one and that one. And there's actually a spline on the, you can see right there, oops, wrong side, right there, there's a spline, not a spline, I guess you call it a spline, that those 2 things go into. So I put this on here, and I actually line the nut up like that. Now that this is, oh sorry, I can't point properly like this. Okay, now that this is in here and locked into this nut can no longer turn. You can't turn this nut anymore, which means it's locked there. So essentially what that's done is meant that I don't need a locking nut behind that. And it just looks like a similar but slightly different version of the one that's found on later models. It's really cool. And then after that, you get this circlip right here. There's actually a groove on the inside of the nut. I'll actually take it all apart again. There's a groove on the inside of the nut. My hands are all greasy. I'll be back in a second. Alright, so I've just hung you guys back up on the wall for a second because it's easier for me to film that way. So I've taken off this nut again, and I'll show you. If I grab these 2 bits here. Alright, so this nut gets screwed on, right? After that nut's screwed on, obviously this locking washer goes inside it, if I can make it fit, there we go, it goes inside it like that and locks it so it can't turn anymore. Now to stop this washer coming off, there's a circlip that actually goes on the inside, so it goes, you actually have to squeeze it to make it fit, obviously, because it's like an internal circlip. Basically, you squeeze this and it sits inside a groove inside here, and that stops that washer from coming off. So it's like an earlier model of locking system to lock this wheel bearing nut in place without needing a locking nut or the screw type one. This is really cool. I might keep that instead of the system that's on the 4.1 diff, which is the 2 nuts that lock against each other. I'm liking this. Anyway, now that that's off, once I clean my hands, sorry. This is a greasy job. You get dirty hands. If you've never played with anything mechanical before, you probably won't understand. Anyway, now that I've got that nut off, this comes off and the wheel bearing falls out. Whoops. Yeah, brake rotor with all of the stuff inside it comes straight off. I'm gonna put that down and make sure my wheel bearing's okay. You're at. Wow, it actually looks really good. It actually looks a lot better than the ones in my 4.1 diff. It kind of seems like this diff has been taken care of inside, but not outside. Maybe It's probably because it went on the beach a lot, so he had to take care of it, otherwise it wouldn't work anymore. But yeah, that, if you have a look there, there's no surface rust on any of the rollers or anything like that. They all look really good. I'll clean it up a bit and I'll show you again. Alright, I just cleaned up the bearing and it looks really good. You can't see well because of the light. I'll angle it down a bit more. There's no... oh, come on, focus. Focus, camera. Phone, whatever. There's no surface rust. Anything, any little blemish you see there is just grease. There's no surface rust. Inside, super shiny. Like, this bearing, to me, says Japan. It's a Japanese bearing. There you go. It looks brand new. It says Koyo, high cap, serial number, I don't know. Seriously, this bearing's been replaced not long ago. That's really good news, actually. I'm very happy with that, because I was expecting these bearings to just be shot, like, gone. Happy me. Alright. Next thing I have to do to get all this apart more is I have to remove this cover plate right here. This plate is basically, I think they call it like a brake protector. It like a stone guard. It's supposed to protect the brake disc from getting stone chips and that kind of thing that'll unbalance it and make it not good. Instead of using these brake rotor protectors, I'm probably going to use the ones off the 4.1 axle, simply because I gave them a clean a couple months ago and they actually came out really nice. Much better. This one's all dented and you know, broken, so I'll definitely be using the one off of my existing diff. And now we can get that off. There we go. Alright, so now that that's off, it has exposed, not much actually, I'll show you in a second. It has exposed the stub axle, basically. Well, not the stub axle, it's undoing those bolts not only hold on the cover, the disc cover, they also hold this whole stub axle on. Alright, hands are a little bit cleaner so I can kind of show you. So if you look here, this is what's called the stub axle. This bit right here, wrong side. This bit right here is the stub axle. This whole entire unit. So going from here all the way back, and it's part of this. These bolts that go in there are actually what hold this on. So now, in theory, I should be able to get a hammer and maybe a screwdriver on that, in that seal somewhere, and this should actually start to separate and come off. So I'll do that now. So you'll see if I hammer this a little bit. See? Separated. So I should now be able, there we go. Stub axle, that's what that is. That is called a stub axle, I believe. Yeah. In there, you can see there is a, if I can get the light properly, there's a needle roller bearing. I'm not sure if these usually have a needle roller bearing or if they usually have a brass bush. I know that if you've got an 80 series Land Cruiser, that is a brass type bush, and a common upgrade is a needle roller bearing that was used in the 105s. So actually, I don't know. Since this is from the 80s, this isn't even a GQ, this is an MQ. Remember, this is 1985, this is earlier than that. So, I don't know if they originally had needle bearings or if they had a brass bush bearing, whatever. But that's good. I'll probably be using this stub axle if the other ones have brass. Sit that over there. Now, voila. That, my friends, is the CV, or constant velocity joint. CV stands for constant velocity. Just means that obviously as the axle turns inside the housing, when you steer, this turns but can still spin. I'm assuming most of you know that. In theory, I should be able to just pull this out now, so I'm going to put you back up on the wall, and I'll do that. Alright, time to pull this axle out, if it works. Well, I know my axle seal's working, because after I pulled it out, it went Probably means my diff breather isn't working, actually. Anyway, that is the short side axle. Has a CV on the end. Lots of grease. That's a good sign. That, well, it's not such a good... Actually, no, that's a good sign. Lots of grease is a good sign. It means it's been taken care of, kind of. That's kind of what it means. I'm going to put this somewhere safe. And possibly, I don't know yet, I'll possibly clean out this knuckle here. This is the knuckle. This whole bit, right? Hang on. I'll explain to you in a second. I'll put this in a safe spot. It's always nice to see signs that previous owners have taken care of the stuff that you own. Because it just makes it so much easier for you. I know that if I ever sell the wagon, which I don't plan on doing, whoever owns it next is going to see a whole lot of care been put into it. Hopefully. Hopefully. I hope that's the case. Anyway, this bit here, as you probably know, is the knuckle. It is the bit that goes side to side and allows you to turn. And inside it, lots and lots of grease. And that does not look like it's had diff oil in it, which is good. Well, it either means that the axle seals are good and the diff oil hasn't gone into it, or it means that there was that there was never any diff oil in the first place. I hope that's not the case. Anyway, lots of grease. That's good. Been taken care of, evidently. Yeah. Basically, now that I've done that, I'm going to go and do the other side. I'm going to take this caliper off so that, you know, it's separate, removed. And I'm going to get the center out. I'll film getting the center out. I won't film taking the other side apart because that'll just be annoying. So most of this stuff is in good condition. So these knuckles, I'm going to leave them on there. I'm not going to bother taking off the wipers, taking off, you know, all that stuff. There's already, I don't know how many people are going to see this who've also watched. There's a channel called Aussie Arvos. If either of you guys watch this, Liam or Pat, I love your channel. It's great. Anyway, they've already done a video. Pat's already done a video on taking swivel hubs, the knuckles apart, take it all apart, put it all back together. This is similar to that. So if you want to know how to do all of that in more detail, go and watch the Aussie Arvos video. I'll put a link in the description or something if I remember. Anyway, so I'm going to leave these on. I am going to have to take the tie rod off because that gets in the way of the front diff cover. I can't take the diff out without taking the cover off. But I'm going to go and take the other hub, you know, knuckle apart. Leave the actual knuckle itself on the axle. Check the kingpins, make sure they're in good condition, the bearings, all that. And yeah, just leave them there. Alright, so a bit of an update. It is the next day. Yesterday, Arvo, I ran out of time, I had to go to work. Some shenanigans happened last night. When I was trying to undo the bolts that held the second brake disc cover on, and also the stub axle, well, the whole thing kind of fell off the jack stands. And at that point, it was too late for me to fix it, so I just went, I'm going to deal with this tomorrow, and left. So now, I have taken the opportunity, while the drain plug was exposed, to loosen off the drain plug and the fill plug on the diff, so I can undo both of those now. Good. And I'm going to get my dad to help me lift it back on the jack stands, because that's not a job you can really do by yourself. These are heavy, especially with the diff and knuckles and everything still bolted to them. So yeah, I'm going to do that, continue stripping this thing down. Sorry about the bad camera work, and I'll be back. I'll tell you one thing that happens when you're trying to video things. Your phone gets really dirty, because dirty hands plus not having Siri voice enabled doesn't work very well. Anyway, we got the axle off the floor, back up on the jack stands. It's a bit more stable now, doesn't wobble around as much as it did. And I'm just at the point of taking out this long side CV slash axle. I got the stub axle off, I got the brake rotor cover off. This one here, when it fell on the ground, this one got pretty bent up because the entire axle basically rested on that. So I probably won't be reusing that. I'll either put it all back together without that, or I'll wait to put it all back together. I won't wait. Or when I put the good parts off of my axle onto this one, I'll use the ones off of my axle because they're pretty good. Like I said earlier in the video, I cleaned them up. They came up nicely. So yeah, I probably won't reuse that. I might try to just bend it back into shape a little bit so that I can put this back together and have it on there for now before I put it on my car. But I probably won't use that on the road. Anyway, just about to take out this CV. So, as you'll see, the long side CV is always much longer than the short side. It doesn't seem to matter how far off center your diff is. The short CV is always very short, the long one's always very long. I don't know why it's like that. It's just, yeah. Anyway, so we start to pull this out. And as you're pulling it out, you generally want to try and not let it rest too much on the axle seal. You need to try and keep some of the weight off of it, which I'm not doing a very good job of. Also, okay. Ugh, got that. Sorry about that weird cut. People came in. So I've got the CV out. As you can see, it's very long, as all long side CVs are, as I said. I'm just going to drain the diff oil now, and while that's draining, I'm going to take the sway bar off because I've already got the tie rod off. While the diff was on the floor after it fell off, I just took the chance to take off the tie rod. I took off this side diff cover. Brake rotor cover. I took off I loosened the drain and filler plug. While it was there, I may as well. It's not going to fall off the floor, so. Anyway, I'm going to drain the oil now, and while that's draining, I'll take off this sway bar. Alright, sway bar's off, diff oil's drained. Next thing I need to do before I take off the front cover is undo this diff breather. So basically the way the diff breather setup works in this axle, for some reason, I'm not sure why, is the diff breathes through this tube right here, you can just about see it, and then this basically just breathes into the axle tube. The axle tube then has a breather here. So the diff breathes into the axle tube, which breathes out here. I don't know why they do it like that, but it means I need to take off this. To get this off, I need to use my teeny tiny little 1/4" ratchet. This thing is miniature with an 8mm socket. I don't know why. Yeah, like I said, I don't know why Nissan decided to do it like this. It seems weird. As opposed to just having the diff breathe straight out the top of the housing. But that's the way they did it, so that's the way I have to do it. Some of you might be questioning as well why I'm using this bucket to drain the diff as opposed to the black drain pan that I had before. That pan got crushed and cracked when this fell on the ground, so I can't use that anymore. I've used that for a long time. Lots of oil changes on the Patrol have happened into that pan, but oil drain pans don't hold any sentimental value, so it doesn't really matter. I can always buy a new one. Anyway, once I get this off, I'll actually be able to take off this front cover here, and I'm going to take that off camera because that's too hard. Alright, as you can see, I got the breather off, I did that off camera, and then I took the diff cover off. That wasn't hard. I got all the bolts out, they all came out cleanly, as you know, they usually do. They're not tight bolts. I managed to not destroy the gasket, which is nice. So originally I was planning on making a new gasket. For those of you that don't know, you can use like the gasket maker silicone-y stuff. I have here some gasket paper, so I can make a proper gasket, kind of make a stencil and then cut it out. But there's a chance I may just be able to use the original gasket because I didn't destroy it. Oh, the light is terrible, sorry. I didn't destroy it trying to get the diff out. The diff cover off, sorry. Anyway, that right there is the diff. Let me try and get some of that light off. There we go. Oh, sorry. That right there is the diff. It's in good condition, as diffs and internal parts always are. Nice and shiny. Anyway, I am now going to film my locker video where I take out that diff. I'm going to take it over to the bench over there, and I'm going to install the locker. And once I'm done that, that'll probably take me the rest of today, if not longer. I'll continue with this video, putting this all back together, reassembling everything, possibly fixing those disc covers, and yeah, I'll be back. I always say that. I need to stop saying that. I always say I'll be back. I need to find something different to say. Anyway, see you soon.